Go ahead.
It's called stand the back.
We want to welcome everyone to council committee meeting. We have an agenda in front of us. So I'll call this meeting to order. There's just one addition and we will put that as, do you have that farther down or you want to have that first? We'll put that to 3.8. That's the fourth Monday cleanup that Joan wanted on there.
Yeah.
Councilor Harker, I'm sorry. So items for discussion, snow removal policy. Curtis, you want to talk about this one?
I could do that.
Or Abe's is going to talk about it, sorry.
So here's our old policy, which I think we could all agree lacks a little bit of detail. So we have a new policy before you that has snow removal, snow plowing priority routes, and sanding routes and sidewalk routes. There's two maps at the end. And there's a new policy with some more detailed procedures and processes outlining snow removal and snow plowing in the town. Hopefully you've all had a chance to read this. I'll just go over.
So what's changed?
Nothing really. A lot of this aligns with current practice. So we're not changing anything. We're putting more of our current practices in the policy for better clarification for our residents to see our processes. That's it.
Has the bylaw committee taken a look at it?
They have, yeah. They did last week or two ago,
Okay.
and they didn't have any issues with it. So snow plowing operations begin within 48 hours of initial snowfalls that exceed 5 centimeters, or when snow drifting significantly impedes traffic flow. On residential streets, those are the non-priority streets. Plowing operations begin within 72 hours of last snowfall. And these are kind of worst case scenarios. This is for weekends. When it starts snowing on the weekends, that's when the plowing begins. It gives the operations crew a chance to mobilize and get workers in. Generally throughout the week, if there's a forecast and they know there's going to be a lot of snow, they're going to start hitting those routes right away. They're not going to wait 48 hours or 72 hours, right? So we've got some plowing guidelines. Priority 1 areas: downtown business district, hospital, Broadway, railway, and 100 northeast of Broadway. Priority 2 areas, we'll see that in a minute when we go down to the map. And then some provisions about sanding. Again, this is all in line with our current practices. It's just written down a little bit more in greater detail than it used to be. Snow removal and storage. The town's policy with sidewalks, walkways, and pathways. And then some general information at the bottom about cul-de-sacs, hard-packed snow conditions, and private contractors doing snow removal. And then our priority routes here. The blue is priority 1 and the green is priority 2. And then we have our sanding and sidewalk plowing priorities here as well. You'll notice that the walking trail and the trail from Stonegate to town are not included on here, but they are priorities as indicated on the legend on the side here. The blue being your sanding and the green highlighted areas are the sidewalk priority areas.
So just a question. I'm not sure where they start on the path, the trail, walking path. But they always come down by the hospital and end over there, and then they do that one street right there. They'll cut 2 blocks. They do it in front of the hospital,
Yeah,
then the next block, which I think is great.
yeah.
And then I don't know where they go from there. They must head to the shop down So I don't know, are they trying to do something on the way to the walking trail? Do they do any on the way there, or are they just trying to,
In terms of, sorry, the sidewalk?
the sidewalks as they try to get to the walking trail? So they must start over there by Reed Parker's, right?
I'm not sure where Reed Parker lives, but they do, I know they do get to block in front of the, that chapel, right? And in front of the
That's when
hospital.
they end up. when
Yeah.
they- Which I think is great.
Yeah.
Those people are lucky to have that done for them. And then they must head straight to the, like I tried to notice if they're going down the sidewalk as they head down to the shop. That's what I wondered about.
Oh.
What are they doing on the way
Yeah,
to there?
I'm not sure. I don't know. I
They're
can
just
ask. Go
They're
ahead.
just going to the priority areas.
Say that again, Curtis?
They're just going to the priority areas.
Just going straight there then?
Yeah.
Do they try to get the, like the community center before they go to do the walking path, or what do they do?
I'm not sure the routes. We try to have the things that are open, cleared before the facilities that have an opening time, we try to do those first. So when the town hall was down at the community center, that was done first. The library's still there, so they try to get that done before they open. I'm not sure where it fits in conjunction with the walking trail.
They do a great job. I was just curious about how they do that. I know a lot of people on the walking path sure appreciate them doing the walking path. Any other comments from anybody on what's
I
happening?
actually didn't really realize till I read this that they do not plow cul-de-sacs. That people in cul-de-sacs are always complaining
Yeah.
about that, but I didn't realize that it was kind of a policy that they just don't do it.
It's an issue with getting the equipment into the cul-de-sacs.
That's kind of what I thought, but
If people didn't park on the street, they could get in
Yeah.
there, but if people parked on the street, they can't turn around.
yeah, so I
Where
guess,
Where would you put the snow?
Yeah,
I guess people just in cul-de-sacs just need to know they're on their own.
Yeah.
Because I have heard several people in cul-de-sacs complain that their roads weren't getting plowed. And I thought, well, I guess they just didn't get to it, but
Mm.
I didn't realize that they just weren't gonna do it, so that's good to know.
Just a quick thing on the old, sorry,
Go ahead.
the old policy said 10 centimeters, which is 4 inches, and then the new one says both 4 inches and 5 centimeters. So in the policy procedure, it still says 4 inches, and everywhere else I think it says 5 centimeters.
It's not the same, is it?
No.
5 centimeters, 2.5 inches,
2 inches.
2 inches?
Well, we gotta keep that
Okay,
consistent.
we'll get that, I'll run that by Jesse and get that, cleared up for next week.
Okay.
I never even noticed that.
Councillor Foss, you had a question?
Yeah, just, I noticed this, the last snowfall, because me and my wife, we go walk around town and, I think there's at least one vacant property on Main Street that I believe that the town of Raymond owns, that has a little stretch of sidewalk. I don't know if there are other ones around town that we own that have chunks of sidewalk. But I noticed it wasn't done. I recognize it's probably not a priority, like some of these other areas. I just wondered if those vacant properties with sidewalks are on the town crew's radar, and if that's something that they're responsible to take care of.
They generally are. It's possible that they miss some from time to time. Certainly if it's brought to our attention, we can take care of it.
Okay, thanks.
And then in policy procedure number 5, it says remove ice from hills. I had to laugh at that one because it's obviously copied from Medicine Hat. So really,
Right.
not many
Not-
hills.
don't
Not
really-
too many.
Don't have too many hills.
Any other comments on this? And this will be brought forward to council next week? For a motion? No comment, Curtis or Abe on that? We'll bring this forward to
Yes,
council?
sorry. We will.
Okay, great. Okay,
and 845 would be too, like how 52 that would be focused down, not us trap.
Yeah.
That's
It's nice,
So-
isn't it?
Because
Yes.
okay, let's move on then. 3.2, the waste management bylaw. This was interesting.
Yeah, so you recall this came to the agenda a few months ago with a few changes that operations wanted on there, on the policy. And then it got sent back to develop a policy for scavenging. And just before we were going to review it last week, we got a call from operations requesting that we cancel that policy. And I think you have, hopefully you've all seen the notes. There's a number of reasons why operations wants that scavenging policy scrapped. Here they are right here. Often the site is left in a mess, creating housekeeping issues and general concerns with handling the waste when cleaning it up. As a side note, the electronics recycling company says ours is among the worst that he has seen in terms of messiness. Yeah. And small concern about privacy issues about going through people's garbage, because that does happen. And the big one here is twice this year when the transfer station attendants were pushing garbage, someone popped up out of the garbage,
It's unreal.
which is a very, very dangerous
That's
situation.
really scary.
And so Jesse's requested that he feels the best way to control this is just to ban it. Unfortunately, there are some people who do leave the place tidy, but there are a lot who don't. And for that reason, he's recommending that we just ban it, and he feels it'd be easier to control that way.
It's too bad that a few wreck it for.
I was just gonna say, isn't that how it always works? You have a few bad apples and they wreck it for everybody else. You know?
I think just for the safety concern alone, we have to,
Well, yeah,
Go with
that
recommendations.
scares me to
Yeah.
death, you know?
So your,
Somebody,
your point 4, the Chief Mountain policy bans scavenging.
Yeah.
Can you check into the other towns that are also in the Chief Mountain just to see if they ban scavenging too?
So
Or have you already?
actually, I need to clarify that statement. The policy does, the Chief Mountain policy says no scavenging, but it also says unless you get permission from the municipality. And there are other places that do allow scavenging. Cardston, for one, does allow it, and they do have a policy. There is a bit of a difference in the way their transfer station is set up, where the attendant is able to be right there, right at the transfer station, whereas with us, it's kind of down below in the other area where the recycling is. So it's harder to control that way. For us, it is.
and our tenant used to be up top,
Mm-hmm.
where it was, but then they moved down.
Yeah.
I didn't even realize that people were
Nobody up
I didn't realize that people were scavenging up there, I thought people scavenged like where the fences
yeah,
are.
that's what
You know,
I thought you were
that's-
just
we're
for
the
the
white, so that's-
appliances and
I didn't know they're up
the
in
wood
the,
and furniture and
also
stuff.
perfect scavenging.
I was there on a day after the fresh snowfall, and you could see tracks, people coming in, where they were coming in,
Yeah.
scavenge, without even being open. Just a couple of things on 7.10, there's a reference to 8.5.
Yeah.
And in 7.12, I hate to be picky all the time, but
Oh,
in
that's fine.
7.12, it references section 8.6 above, and there's no 8.6 either. So we just
Okay.
gotta clean that up a little bit.
Okay.
Councillor Foss?
In spite of all the concerns, I will say I still support scavenging. I would still love to find a way we can allow it. I think scavenging in the household materials is a terrible idea, and we should definitely ban it up in the upper transfer station area. But I like allowing people access to reduce some of that waste and reuse things that are still usable. And so I know that there's concerns from employees, but I would love to still find a way to make this work in a way that we don't have abusers and we can control that while allowing responsible people to do it.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you.
I do too.
So
Councillor
do I.
For like
Capito?
dishwasher parts,
Yeah.
and all kinds of different stuff.
Yeah, I'm still happy I got my dishwasher thing.
had a member of the public tell me that they came to the transfer station at the very beginning of one day when it was open, and there was someone who came out of the seat can or around the seat can where the electrical components and stuff are. And so they thought that was kind of weird, and the idea was they were thinking either they were scavenging or they were sleeping back behind there, which is kind of worrisome. I kind of follow along with Stuart. When we heard the story about someone, when the Chief Mountain guys were pushing all the garbage to dump into the big trailer, and a head popped up, that scares the crap out of me. But the fact is that some people want to use some of these other things to recycle. I see value in that. My concern though is if in the summertime maybe we have a younger operator who's kind of working at the transportation. I'm not sure exactly who's operating, in the off season, I guess, or during the summer months. If we have a younger person doing that, but to have a conflict with maybe someone who is scavenging could be a little worrisome if there was a young person there who isn't able to handle themselves or gets abused by someone who's just having a bad day. I would feel bad for that young person if that was the case, though.
Maybe we need to discuss this more tonight, I guess. But any kind of ideas, Stuart, of how you think that should work? Like a sign maybe at the other, where the household stuff is, no scavenging there. And the other one, maybe you've got a book of time or.
I've always kind of thought that you could solve it with, I think we have a parking bylaw and, making it a loading zone, so that people have to kind of come and go quickly and can't hang out in that lower area. But I don't know if that would work or not. If you have a violator, theoretically you could call the police officers to have them ticketed. As for the upper area, I think signage, but I don't know. I don't really have a perfect solution.
I really don't think a sign's gonna stop somebody up top. Like, the only way to stop is if you have to put the antenna back up there. 'Cause the guy's gonna see the sign, they're not gonna. So I'll be here 10 minutes, and they're just gonna go through stuff anyways.
Well, I think if you have a big, huge sign that says danger, no scavenging,
That would deter some, but I think it's still,
there's
There's still that risk.
They might think, oh, why is it dangerous? Remember, there's a hole back, and at least I would, if it said danger, no scavenging.
could we put the antenna back up top instead of having them down below, or is like?
No, that would cause, we've set up the transfer station for access from off of 300.
Yeah.
300 East, I believe the road is. We'd have to double the amount of employees we have down there just for that, and I'm not sure that's the best use of funds. And again, I'm not sure if putting up a sign is gonna do anything, because a lot of the people that are causing the problems aren't gonna be the ones that listen to the sign anyway. And so, it's really just a council decision if you want to allow scavenging or not. If it is, we can try to manage it as best we can, but it's secluded. We do have 24-hour access in that one area. We could close that down at certain times. It reduces the availability to the public, and it's not as convenient, but it is something that could be considered. But again, people will just park and walk in and do their things after hours if they want. So.
Councilor Peters?
Yeah, I was just talking to somebody, and we do have new cameras and stuff set up there, don't we, for better surveillance? So I think that can alleviate certain things, and if we have guys on camera that are being significant perpetrators, I think that's something we kind of go after on an individual basis. I myself, if I take the dump that I think someone else can use, I usually leave it by the side, and in the process of dumping my stuff, to me, if I see something valuable, I'm not spending time going through trash, but if it's something I can use, I'll grab it, throw it in my truck, and take it right away. But I see the issue, but I think with cameras, we can go after some of the problematic situations maybe on an individual basis.
So I was gonna ask that question too, about cameras, Curtis. Do you know how they're working down there?
I haven't seen the footage of them yet. I know they've just been installed, and they've had to, it's not the best place to even install them, just because you need availability of power and you need high vantage points and Wi-Fi connectivity. So they've done a lot of work there. I haven't seen exactly what it's looking like, but it is better than it was before. I could maybe have a better report later.
Councilor Fromm?
I've still kind of entertain the thought of scavenging by appointment only, because I mean, some of the letters that I received last time we were dealing with this, they were really good people that would do that. I mean, and by appointment only doesn't mean that you can come in, just come in when somebody's there and you've got permission to scavenge. But I'm thinking about, outside of this policy, how do you actually physically deter people? I mean, you say no by policy, but they're still gonna go in.
Because just what Bryce said, he's dropping something off and he says, oh, there's a whatever, and he picks it up, puts it in his truck.
But I mean,
You know?
heads that pop up when they're trying to push garbage, I mean, and the tracks that come in the
That is
winter.
so
You
crazy.
can't stop people from scavenging, other than by policy, unless you're willing to literally find people.
Yeah.
When you catch them doing
Yeah.
it. So.
And I hate to do that, cause you know, I just know my kids have gotten tons of good things. We got just a freezer, and an old freezer. We wanted to store our weed outside in our garage, but you can't, cause it's gonna be mice, so we just put all our weed in there. It's the greatest thing ever,
And
you
it's a
know,
good deal, yeah.
it was free,
And for some reason,
you know?
scavenging should be allowed,
I
but
know,
if it's people looking for a dishwasher part or a freezer or something, or a door or something that, I mean, there are a lot of good people who really do find some good stuff there.
I just think it would be crazy to say, no, you can't do it at all, but I don't know how to. Why do we have to have people that do
And my
things
question is,
that
how
are
do you
crazy?
stop them? I mean,
I don't
because
know.
we've heard stories of the people who are just belligerent. They just come and they say, hey, I can do whatever I want.
I know,
Park what they
that,
want and
we-
just walk in and do it.
I don't
And
know,
what do you do?
Like Councilor Peter says, that you'll have a summer student down there, how are they gonna stop a guy from doing that?
I know.
You know?
Yeah.
It makes it hard for them.
yeah.
Part of the challenge too is just the mess that's left behind. So even if people are going down finding a part, it's usually something they have to access and they gotta dig into something and actually try and get it. And what they've removed or taken off it's not like they're putting it back together again after they take out the one widget they're looking
Yes.
for, right? And so it's that collective issue of just waste. That's a challenge. And I don't disagree with the benefit of reusing things so there's less waste in general. But it's not a simple solution.
No, it's not.
And staff would prefer that we don't allow it, right?
But again, as Curtis said, this is your policies and you determine the level of service in the community. So if you want us to develop a scavenging policy where we try to control as many hazards and control the scavenging process the best we can, then we can develop something, right?
Well, obviously, they shouldn't be going into where the domestic garbage is put.
Yeah.
And,
it
yeah, I
sounds like
think there
the
should be a fine for that, for sure.
electronics too, shouldn't be there, right?
The challenge with electronics is we lock that we've probably spent $1,000 in padlocks over the last few years and they're just cut every single time.
Yeah.
See, which will happen whether we say no to it in a policy or not. Or put up
Yes.
a big sign, it'll still happen.
This is a tough one, because we can see the value of it for some people, but then what do you do?
This isn't going to solve it. Today's solution would be to finish wrapping the cell area with concrete Lego blocks up to a height that's kind of 3 or 4 tall that we have on the north side. You still have the gate portion where people can get through, but if that's locked, it's a bit more inconvenient than it is just hopping over the Lego block in that sense. And if we got some increased fencing. So I mean, there are some things that they do involve costs.
Yeah, that's not looking good this year. Any other thoughts on this? Anybody?
Well, I kind of, for safety, I think the first thing we should do is put a sign at the top that says absolutely no scavenging. At least then you know they're doing something wrong.
Or I'd like the idea before say danger. Like,
Danger. I mean, usually if somebody sees a sign that says danger, I don't know, most people I know would be a little bit nervous, wouldn't they? If it says danger.
And I'd also like to know about the cameras. The cameras should be catching people. They got good enough cameras. Should be able to identify faces, anyway, of who the perpetrators are.
Mayor,
Councillor Foss, please.
I was gonna say, one other opportunity we might have, once we sort of nail this down is, using our attendant for some education. Perhaps we have a little, flyer or something about the dangers of this or that. And as for signage, I picture, I don't know if you've seen like some of the icon-based signage you see on machinery where it's got mangled fingers, or where, at Waterton, they've got the deer attack signs where you're just like, I don't want any part of that. And maybe there's some signage for don't scavenging, I don't know. Might be more
It's pretty
effective
gross
than
up top. I
a
mean-
big thing that says don't do it.
I
Hazardous
can't even
waste,
imagine anybody crawling up there.
Yeah, for sure.
to the point that they could pop out, when the.
The sign says garbage can be pushed over edge at any time, so
Yeah,
like, don't be in there. Like,
They should hear the
danger.
bobcat, they should be scared.
That's
You're
what I
driving a
can't
bunch of
even
garbage, you might
believe.
not care, right? They might just think it's a truck or something, or like, I don't know.
Mayor?
Councillor Peters, please.
I, at the end of the day, I just don't think signs work that allow this or that. We have signs out that tell you when you can speed, or you can't speed. 100 kilometers is the maximum you can drive. Yet people break it. It's a human nature to kind of do what you want to do, unless you're like I think Councillor Fromm said, unless you were willing to have a fine or have someone enforce a policy. It gets kind of dicey.
Well, we just spent some big money on cameras there. I'd like to have a report about how that's working.
Well, if nobody ever looks at the cameras, you're not gonna ever,
Well, we just spent money, I don't know.
Well, I know,
Someone
but
should be looking
you
at
have to actually look at the cameras or you're never gonna see what's going on.
it. Maybe some fines could happen.
It's recording, so if there's damage, we can go back and review the footage and see. The challenge is, even with the best cameras, they're not always admissible in court. Just if the visuals aren't exactly what they feel is appropriate, and so I'm not saying that is the case in this instance. I'd have to go and look and see what we have there, but it is being recorded. We can review that and bring a report back next week.
Yeah, I'd like that. Anyone else?
How about a sign that says, anyone found scavenging without permission or without their employment will be subject to a fine of $250 or something like that.
Cause I'm in favor of scavenging by appointment only, that
By
sounds
appointment
ridiculous,
only,
but
or permission or something like that, how word like
if
that.
you don't get permission or
Yeah.
appointment, you
Will
get
be
fined.
subject to a fine of whatever,
So who would you
either
get,
500 or
who would you get permission from and who would?
the
be-
attendant.
The attendant.
You
You know,
can
even if
say
you've got a summer student,
you've got the
appointment or
scavenging-
permission.
Yeah, we can even put hours, scavenging will be allowed between 9 and 10 a.m. or, just certain times of the day that it'll be allowed. And found outside those hours.
Outside those hours, you will be prosecuted.
You will be prosecuted with a fine of up to whatever,
All it would take is
$500.
one person to have a fine and everybody would know. You know what I'm saying?
So we'll develop a draft policy for scavenging and bring it back to you.
I hate to
Based
go
on the
against staff
conversation.
recommendations, but I do believe there are enough people in town that benefit from scavenging that we need to allow some.
And we can put some controls in place to try to guide it as best as possible, right?
Okay.
So.
And as we all know, times are getting harder and harder.
Yeah.
And sometimes if somebody can get something that's free, that's usable, I just kind of like that idea.
And the thing is,
You know?
people throw away really good stuff.
do.
People just throw it away,
Like- I know we
They don't
do all the
take it
time because I'm not gonna put it on Facebook and have somebody come,
Easier
I'm
than
just
having
not
a
going
garage
to.
sale, yeah.
We just I'm not gonna have a garage sale either. I'm just gonna take it to the
So
dump.
I did the same thing and I put it on the side, so if someone wants it, they
Yeah.
can pick it up before it gets
So
stolen.
I really feel strongly that we need to let people who need stuff be able to get
Anyway,
it.
sorry to do that to you, Abe, but if you wanna go to work on this one,
I will, it's all good.
okay. Everybody okay with that? Okay. 3.3, bylaw 968-10, the care of boulevards and lanes. Is that Abe or you?
Yeah, that would be me here.
Oh, that's you.
Yeah, so, this pertains to Boulevard parking, and a little bit of what we addressed with last week there, and a little bit of a conflict with our land use bylaw. and the wording of this. And so basically, I just want to talk to you a little bit about it and see if you kind of are in the opinion that it does need to have a slight adjustment. And some findings that I was actually going through this legislation. So we have our land use bylaw, and we have this Cara Boulevard and Lanes bylaw. Both are very important. The land use bylaw deals with everything planning related, and it deals by breaking up all the parcels in Raymond into different zoning, residential, commercial, industrial. You can do certain things with that. This Cara Boulevard and Lanes bylaw addresses every boulevard in town, and it addresses things like the maintenance of the boulevard and stuff like that. But there's one portion in here that does say that the storing and parking of automobiles, trucks, buses, or other equipment is not permitted. No boulevard shall be used for the following. Despite the above, boulevard parking may be approved for owners upon submission of Appendix B. And then if we go to Appendix B, the wording of a little bit in the last little portion here is just some really kind of picky wording, but it makes a big difference on when you read it. So I have highlighted here is items C and D. Item C says it must comply with on-street parking and driveway provisions and regulations as outlined in the land use bylaw. Going through the land use bylaw, on-street parking is actually not defined at all. I think what it was meant to say was maybe comply with the off-street parking requirements. So we do have off-street parking requirements, which are things such as stall widths, stall depths, aisle widths and stuff like that. So it's well defined for off-street parking. So that was a bit kind of one clue that, again, really small kind of error, but something that we can fix up. And then the biggest thing is item number D here. So it says driveway and boulevard parking must not exceed 20% of the total frontage of the home. And so when I kind of read this, so that's kind of some funny terminology of the home. A little bit common words that we kind of use in the planning land use bylaw is usually frontage of the lot. And also it says driveway and boulevard parking must not exceed 20%. And so I went through and talked with Bonnie Bruner and addressing our application last week for the boulevard parking to accommodate that restaurant on 186 Broadway South. This confines us to a higher standard that it says it must not exceed 20%. And even if, so that means that if I get an application as a development officer, if it doesn't meet, if it exceeds 20%, I cannot approve it in my powers because it is written here as must not exceed 20%. It's quite clearly worded. And so this was actually brought up by some of the comments of some of the individuals last week. And then secondly, that also was confusing to me is that there was a unreferenced section here, section 1B. We have a minimum application fee. That reference does not exist, according to my knowledge there. And then also we have this discretionary versus permitted use. So if it's discretionary, then your fee somehow goes up, but yet I don't have discretion because it says must not exceed 20%. So in what I've drafted up in the next page here, I've kind of put some recommendations to, after going through this with some planners and some additional knowledge here, I've kind of highlighted some recommendations.
Can you blow it up just one?
Yes.
It's a little small.
So the biggest item number D, well, my recommendation is to actually take that entire section out, is that boulevard parking must not exceed 20%. And I would kind of recommend that you place it with the town's development officer will have the authority to approve or reject boulevard parking applications at their discretion in accordance with any applicable policy. So that means that we can change this today, and then we can also draft up a policy that would help me guide on which applications would and would not be approved. And then third, item number E here, I think this would be a nice thing to add, is that boulevard parking may be also granted as part of a development permit approval or other authorization under the town's land use bylaw. Where boulevard parking has been granted as part of a development permit approval or authorization, the parking on boulevard application form is not required. So those are instances where we have an application like last week, where we have an approval body, which is council, and they, and as part of that application, you are approving the boulevard parking as well. So it basically, it's a little bit of red tape reduction. It's that if you approve the restaurant with the boulevard parking, you don't have to fill out this application. You don't have to go through a second application for boulevard parking. So with this added thing, it defaults the appropriate decision authority, whether that be MPC, it might be council in regards to that redesignation that we had last week. And it defaults to what their decision is on the whole kind of thing. So, and then I also kind of went and just said, well, let's just simplify it and just have 1 fee of $60, or as listed in the most up to current fees and charges bylaw, and take out this whether it's discretionary or permitted, and say that every application is discretionary. With dealing with this, what I find is that every instance is different. I have included a couple examples on the next slide here just to kind of show you a couple here. So this is actually the I think Meadowlark Manor on 100 North and 200 East. And right on the north side, you can see that the entire boulevard is used for parking along there, as well as the residence that's just to the west there. So in these cases, this is already existing. I don't think that this is causing an issue, but the bylaw that we have written says must not exceed 20%. So therefore, I wouldn't be able to approve this application as it's written. With my changes that I've proposed, all instances would be discretionary of the development officer with an associated policy that would have me kind of take a look at the site specifics of this and say that, okay, left and right of this street, we got, plenty of ample on-street parking. This has already been in existence for a while, and it serves a purpose for these seniors so that we can therefore approve it and not have to be kind of constrained by this 20% maximum of the homes, of the residents is how it was kind of made. So yeah, those are my recommendations. I also have maybe another example here too, where here we have a couple of places where we have boulevard parking on this 300 North residence, and then also around the corner here we have a spot there where we have kind of a larger driveway. It's paved, but again, it exceeds that 20% of the maximum frontage. But this would allow me to kind of look at site specifics, and not myself, just at the development officer at the time. So I think by drafting up a policy at a later date, we could kind of narrow down what's approved and what's not. Any questions?
Is there any that we've done in the past little bit that would come back to bite us? Like we've said they couldn't do it, now they could if we change this?
I don't think so. I don't think we've gotten too far on into the implementation of this. So this was passed in 2019. As soon as I got here in my capacity as development officer in April 2020, we've had 25 permit applications for boulevard parking. Of those 25, we have approved, I believe, 10, and we have 15 that are pending because I think I already had issues with trying to determine whether we can approve them or disapprove them. So Of the 25 applicants, 15 are kind of pending right now, and 10 have been approved. So the 10 that have been approved are pretty cut and dry.
Okay, does anybody else have any questions? Councillor Foss?
It was, as I read this bylaw and think back to when we passed it, like it doesn't really take into account land use zones, right? So I think we probably have lots of commercial areas that would be considered in violation of this. So I think the changes you're proposing, Mark, to my mind, makes sense. Give you the authority to approve on a case-by-case basis.
And I agree. I was thinking maybe we need to put in the residential, put in parking on residential bylaws, which would do the same thing, but I think your changes handle it better. Because then it doesn't matter whether it's zone commercial or residential, you just deal with it the way you see fit.
Yeah.
I like those changes, they're good.
Because if you put residential, then you gotta be specific about it. If it's a one-person dwelling or like a residence, like a group home or whatever, saying like, how do you differentiate between all that? Whether it's a duplex, a single-family dwelling, a complex, So if it's just up to you, then it's, way easier.
Up
I
to
like
me, up to me, or a key component of this, I think, is that extra item E, that if it's conditional of the appropriate approval body, so let's say you're hearing an application for even a commercial business on Main Street, but they don't have room to have off-street parking, but you kind of have this precedent that we can use our boulevard on Main Street to park. So if they have an application for a new business on Main Street and they're required under our land use bylaw to provide off-street parking, the application comes to the MPC is able to grant approval for it, then they don't need to come to me for approval because the appropriate body has already given them and taken that into consideration when they're dealing with the entire application rather than kind of piecemealing it together. So I think that's
Reduce
good.
red tape.
Good idea.
So in the case of last week, if council just determines that they like that application of the boulevard parking with it, it all kind of goes together. So then you're able to kind of determine as the appropriate authority for the development permit and the rezone that it goes with your decision, that it's not required.
And it would have just been done already instead of having it be separate, is that what you're saying?
That's what I'm saying, yeah.
Would have just been already approved.
But right now, we had a conflict there with the application of next week's with it exceeding the 20% maximum frontage of the home.
That simplifies a lot of things.
Yeah.
Occasionally.
You've done some good work on that, Mark.
Oh, that's great.
There's a lot of,
Okay,
Like it.
any other questions for Mark on this? And we'll bring it back to council next week and make a motion on that. Thank you, Mark, for doing that. Okay, move on. 3.4, Main Street pedestrian safety. Councillor Foss, you wanna talk on this one?
Sure, yeah. I put some shared notes in there. I will sort of paraphrase them to introduce it, but there was, some of you may have heard about this, there was an incident on Main Street this last week where a teenage girl was struck in a crosswalk, luckily not seriously injured, but it revived for me my concerns about Main Street. I'm not sure they ever went away, but I'm still concerned about Main Street safety. And my daughter, I think I put in the notes here, my daughter's had a couple incidents where she was sort of almost backed into, I had it wasn't a close call for me, but last February, when I was in a crosswalk, and there were certain kids coming from the other side, a car turned a corner and just about out through some kids. And as I looked through this Facebook thread, there were many other people sharing similar stories to my experience. And I did include them in the shared notes, some of those comments, but I don't know, this is like a problem I'm highlighting and I've highlighted a few times. I don't know that I actually know what the solution is. I've got some ideas, but I'm not a traffic expert. But I did have a quick conversation with Ray Whitbeck, who's in our community and has some expertise in this area and background in this area. And he offered some insights, said he'd be happy to come and talk to council if we were interested in that. But he highlighted that there's kind of 3 E's in traffic safety, which is engineering, education, and enforcement. And so he felt that there were perhaps some engineering issues on Main Street when it comes to safety, which maybe that's obvious, I don't know. But he felt that perhaps the addition of, we've got those flashing lights down Main Street, but there's no flashing lights in the middle of the block where the parking is. So the visibility of those flashing lights isn't as good as it could be, especially if you've got somebody who's cleared one half of the street and is in the middle partition and then moving into the other half of the street. Somebody may assume that it's clear without looking all the ways. And so that's a potential fix. I've tossed around the idea. I think that Main Street has more in common with parking lot than it does with a regular roadway. And parking lot speed limits generally are quite slow, 15, 20. I don't know if that's a fix or not. But he also suggested enforcement. I think Councillor Parker just said something along the lines of, a ticket or two would, when it comes to the dump, would wake up people in the community. People would hear about it and it might change behavior. And so that might be a solution too. I don't know, I think I'm kind of just looking for perhaps some ideas from administration or council as to how we can move forward the safety issue here.
So good discussion and good write-up, Councilor Foss. I was talking to Mr. Whitbeck last night too, and then been thinking about it today too. So with us parking in the middle on that one block in Main Street, it creates a problem, right? And like you said, maybe, I've had other people that ask me too about, it's too bad we couldn't have some kind of button they can press in the middle. Or some kind of sign right there. Because they're walking or they park in the middle and they can't push the button because they can be noticed as they are walking across. So, a couple of things I thought of, like you just suggested, the one, maybe we should reduce the speed for that one block. We do have our signs that could be on both ends of that for a while, showing people that it is 30 or maybe down to 20 if we want to do that. But that would really help having those signs and make people be more aware. But like you said, reduce the speed limit. Anyone else have any thoughts? You surely don't want to get anyone hit.
I like the idea of a reduced speed. Sometimes when I'm driving with somebody and they're going through uptown and there's just because the speed limit is whatever it is.
It's 30 right now.
Yeah, I know, they think they can go 30, but when there's so many, it doesn't feel like they should be going 30 to me, you know what I'm saying? It feels like they need to be going way slower because there's people, crossing and getting in and out of cars and, it just, especially when it's really busy uptown, which is when that's the
Between
part
9
that
and
you're
6.
worried about,
Yeah, between 9 and 6, it's busy.
Yeah, it's really busy. And so I don't know if you change the speed limit during that time or put those are speed limit things there and just have them all the time there. I don't know. It's probably cheaper than putting new lights. I imagine those are pretty expensive, those flashing lights.
And they do a good job, but there's no way to turn them on from the middle.
Yeah.
To understand that,
Yeah. But if people are going slower, they're gonna notice the signs. I've never not driven down there and looked to see if the signs are flashing.
I've never pushed the button to make them flash. I just go. So I'm just as guilty as other people too, thinking. But I look to see if people are coming. Anyone else have a thought? Councillor Peters?
Yeah, I think a lot of it does come back down to unfortunately, education for both pedestrians and for drivers. I think a lot of us have been places where you'll get ready to go across the street, you're driving, and you'll see some people sitting on the side of the road. Also, those are run across a crosswalk, expecting that they have the right of way, in which they do, but the drivers aren't necessarily prepared for them, and a lot of people aren't pushing lights, like you mentioned. And I don't necessarily want ticketing, but if you have more of a presence down there, it might do something. Reducing a speed to 20, say from 8 o'clock in the morning to 6 o'clock in the evening, might be a way to bring attention to people that are going to start thinking about a little bit more. Or you go back to what my good friend Mr. Pratt said about traffic circles, and I don't know if we're there yet.
We're not.
We're not talking about that. Anyway.
Tell you, if you sat down there, pop up a lawn chair and sit down there for a few minutes and watch the number of just terrifying interactions between cars and humans, and it's a real wake up. And I think I mentioned this in my comments when I was talking to Larray Whitbeck. He happened to be downtown, and so I talked to him for a few minutes, and he said, every time something would go off the rails, he'd say, "Oh, I just saw somebody cut through the center of the block. I just saw a car go through. There's a pedestrian in the crosswalk there." And maybe it'd be worth asking our peace officers, to sort of discreetly sit around downtown and watch for a bit and see where those incidents are. I think, you drop a car down there, behavior changes, but it would be nice for them to kind of get an eye-opening experience to see it.
But reducing the speed limit would help too, to reduce it to 20 clicks for that one block. Councilor Computers?
We've had the discussion just very briefly. I know Curtis has brought it up, but we haven't really got into it. With the redevelopment of Main Street and what that might look like in regards to maybe pulling out the parking in the middle of the street and making it just one way each way. It might make I'm not saying we got to do it now, but at some point it might make it easier visually for somebody to see a pedestrian coming across that may get lost in the middle of traffic of parked cars. Not sure.
Yeah, for sure.
I like that idea, take the parking away.
But that's been there for,
I know it's been there.
I think, as for now, we could try to reduce the speed limit
I think that's a good idea.
and then put those signs up so people see that it's been reduced and they need to slow down. So when I go down there, they do drive fast. It's hard to even back up anymore because they don't even wait for you anymore. So if we did reduce it to 20, just for that one block, or would you go
Yeah,
more?
I don't know.
More blocks? Just during business hours.
I think you want it to be consistent with the main street. Right now we have 30 from Broadway 52 down to the Church Park Ave intersection. I'd say you'd want it to be consistent.
You could do that. That's 2 blocks.
Because you don't want to go 50, 20, 30, 50, like, it gets too confusing for people.
So I might as well bring this up too. If 845, we're projecting it's gonna get paved this summer. The RCMP, Curtis and I had a meeting with Sergeant Wright about this, and he says if that's gonna happen, then your Highway 52, something needs to change on that. Maybe a 4-way stop, maybe a traffic circle, which I opposed.
Thank you.
Oh, they're so awesome.
Curtis was in the meeting too.
Awesome.
We had a discussion on that. Or maybe the 52 goes straight through, so you're just stopping on Main Street, which is an interesting thought too. But we're gonna have to decide on that too here in the future. So the trucks will go on 845, turn on 52 like the big grain trucks, and then just keep on going. So, we can do it at the same time, change the speed limit, and what we do with that corner there too, so. Anyway, any thoughts on that? So,
Is this where I say I like traffic circles?
No,
no, I don't know how, Curtis,
I do, just
I
for,
love
who brought that
traffic
up?
circles.
in case you've never heard that before.
Councillor Capita's brought it up this time.
Well, I tell you, I drive through traffic circles every day in Lethbridge, and people go faster in the traffic circles.
They don't know.
It's
how to
like,
do
it's
it.
like speeding up, it's like a speed corner for them.
That's a biased side of the argument, Ken.
That really is.
There's a one lane one over there by the college, over there by the Sportsplex, that works really well, but those
I
double,
love that one.
there's a good one there, but the double lane ones over there in West Lethbridge, they don't work good. People don't know where to,
No.
Well, you
How to
just
drive
have to
on
know how to do it, you know.
but they don't.
There's a little bit of education involved.
But a one laner works, I agree with that, but I don't know how you can get a one laner at that highway, corner of Highway 52 and Main Street for big semis to get around. But Curtis and I have already been discussing that one, just ourselves, trying to see if it would work. Anyway, back to the Main Street, what's the suggestion? I really do like the idea of moving the speed limit down for those 2 blocks during business hours.
Yeah, I mean, out of all the suggestions that's been given, definitely the most cost-effective and immediate return will be the reduction of the speed limit. We would recommend that if we are going to do that it's for those 2 blocks, so it's consistent. If we do go looking at getting additional solar pedestrian signs in the middle, we are going to have to basically redo the medians that we started to replace and then we're told not to, because it may not be the long-term plan, but you're going to need something there for protection of the equipment, snow removal, traffic, and the pedestrian kind of in the middle of the road.
Yeah.
Enforcement and presence, I almost fell off my chair when I heard Ken and Jim say we need to write tickets, because that's like the opposite of their mantras from the beginning of time, but I support that as well.
I see that.
But I think all of this can be a part of that collective discussion about the redevelopment of downtown, what we want Main Street 2.0 to look like for the next 100 years. This reduction of the speed limit, these solar signs, and those are minor things that we can add that regardless of what you do decide to do, can be facilitated, and we can have these as part of that conversation. So you would want to probably have a not a grace period, but an education period where we're giving some notice before we make that change, and we can definitely relocate those speed display signs immediately as well. We just got to get our first call then before we can get that up. So.
Sorry to step out for a minute, but are you still talking about the engineering portion of the 3E solution?
No, we never did.
Okay.
Yeah, Ken and Jim, Ron really want traffic circles now.
Oh, excellent.
I don't
No.
remember talking about that either.
I don't recall ever saying that.
Or saying people should get tickets down there, Curtis. We're still trying to.
I was thinking that's a great place for the speed bumps that we got by the schools, you know. But Stuart, I just wanted to say that as far as visibility, I was driving into Raymond tonight and I could see those lights blinking from 4 blocks away. It's not a visibility problem,
No,
it's an
it's not.
education problem.
So we've been talking about maybe reducing the speed limit for those 2 blocks down to 20,
Down to 20.
No, it's smart.
just during business hours.
People shouldn't be barreling through there ever.
I agree.
Well,
Those are supposed to be going 30 now.
Yeah.
Right.
especially with parking in the middle, it's hard to see people.
It is.
And people are slowing down, making them slow down, and that's,
But you can see those from a mile away. Anybody who just looks right at you when you're in the parking or when you're on the crosswalk and drives past, that's education. They need to have some comeuppance, I think.
And I think some enforcement would be a quick education for
I do too.
folks in Raymond.
That might be a good emphasis for us to talk about with the policing services next time.
well,
Sorry to miss that.
that can be talked to the peace officers right now, can't it?
Yeah, for sure.
Curtis, we can talk to them about that.
Yeah, so we'll bring a proposal to council meeting for some short-term steps and then maybe a projected plan to kind of review this as part of a larger picture for you to discuss that next week's council meeting.
Okay,
Traffic circles. Ken, you went to the dark side, did you?
No,
so
I will not cross that line.
we don't know what Curtis was even talking
I
about.
don't know. Curtis making up stories now.
Oh, you know. I know.
I
We all know.
I brought up that we had Curtis and I met with Sergeant Wright, and he said that once 845 gets paved, we gotta think of something different on this corner here, where 52 on Main Street is. He brought up the traffic circle, which I immediately said no, or a four-way stop, or maybe you change the traffic from 52 to go straight through, so that Main Street
But Main
is
Street has to stop.
So, I mean, we have to make that decision here, if that's getting paved sometime between now and when it gets done, we're gonna have to make that decision, so.
Okay.
Anyway, so if we did reduce the, Main Street, those 2 blocks down to 20, it's kind of a natural one right now, because they're gonna come up to a four-way stop, right?
Yeah.
So, anyway, that's all we talked about, so I don't know where he got the tickets and the traffic circle from. Anyway. Any other questions or comments on that? We move on?
We'll bring a report back to council for next week for your consideration with some short-term and long-term measures.
Okay.
Great.
You can even have a traffic circle in there so the public can see it out. It won't work. 3.5, Raymond High School request. Is this you, Curtis?
Yeah, so the Raymond High School sent a letter to the town basically requesting that the town donate use of of the House Creek Golf Course as part of a fundraising initiative for Common Athletics. And we're requesting that so that more revenue, I guess, could be generated and could be donated back to the program. We did discuss it as with the staff, and obviously, if we donate the use of the golf course, that's revenue lost from the community for the town for the revenue of the golf course for 2021. And we do have Brimstone Grill, which is under new management, which is in there. And if outside food's brought in, then technically that's an impact again for them on an afternoon that is kind of beyond their control. And so, as discussing the recommendation back from administration was that if council was in favor of donating the court something to this program, that we'd be able to maybe donate half of the green fees for the tournament and half of the cart rentals, so that there would still be some revenue coming in for the town for the program. And then also we would require that any food that they are going to be utilizing has to be through Brimstone.
So what would that cost be, Curtis?
We don't know. It's going to depend on the number of entries, number of foursomes that they have out playing. And so I don't have that number off the top of my head, unfortunately, Mary Depew actually. But just we got nine times, just roughly 9 holes times 4 times. Actually, I'm not even confident enough to give you an estimate right now. I'll have to go talk to the staff. So,
That's what I was curious about. How much are we talking about that we're giving up for them? How much will they make from it? Like, is it a good money maker?
there'll be about, well, it's going to depend on, I mean, whoever's entering and they have a fundraising efforts that they do, right? If there's a, my brain's going blank here.
We do other things for the high school too, like they take all the revenue from concessions at the Victoria Sports Field too, correct?
Yeah, during games, they have use of that concession building there. I can't give you an answer right now. We'd have to get that answer for you coming back as to what that potential revenue would be if it was a perfect scenario where it was fully booked. What that would be, but I don't have those.
Any other thoughts from anybody?
I'm actually in favor of it as long as all of our expenses are covered. And I never thought about Brimstone Grill, but I would like to see any outside food restricted too.
Councilor Peters?
I feel like Ron, I support it. The reason I support it is that we're still helping our kids and our community kids, and taxpayers are still benefiting from maybe cheaper fees or ways we can run programs. So I support it that way. I did walk down the hall last week and met with Brett and just asked a little bit more information. I talked to him about the Brimstone Grill, and he told me he's willing to definitely reach out and work with them, coming up with maybe a menu that they could do that would both benefit Brimstone and the patrons that would be going there. So I think that's something that's definitely on the table that the high school is willing to work with them.
And one other paragraph in the letter, or one other sentence, they talk about supporting our tournament later in the fall. What could we exchange there? I mean, what could we,
What can we expect?
what can we expect? Yeah.
I think it'll just be participation, more than likely, from those within the school system, within that Red and White Classic.
Well, I really like the idea of it because I just feel really sorry for these high school kids right now.
And there's
No
no
football,
there's
no
Super Bowl gate,
basketball,
there's
no,
no anything for them
You
to
know,
raise money.
like I feel really bad for them. I mean, mental health wise, people need something to look forward to, you know.
I look
They
at
just
this as
need
another
something to look
opportunity,
forward to.
I look at this as another opportunity to get people to see our course. Maybe the people from out of town, they're going to come support maybe a cousin or a nephew that's playing one of the sports at the high school that they enter a group, and there's more attraction to our golf course that to come and spend money at later on.
I agree. I like the
I
idea. I
agree.
just don't want to see us have to absorb any expense.
Oh, absolutely.
But I guess we do though. Look at the swimming pool, the golf course, and the ice rink. We do absorb costs in those facilities, and I think because there are programs, I think is a really good idea to try and support them.
I'm in favor of supporting them, but my question is, do we do anything like this, make any concessions for other organizations that do tournaments? Like the Rotary Club
Or the RCMP.
or the RSMP, when they put on their tournaments, do we give them some type of, like, half off cars, half off green fees or anything like that?
I don't have the answer to that.
And I'm okay with doing it for them too, but I think if we do it for one, we need to do it, we need to be consistent with it.
Is this something that should come back maybe in 2 weeks, another committee?
It's up to you. I mean, we can bring it back to council meeting, and if there's enough information, you can discuss it. If you want to bump it again, you can, or we can just wait for 2 weeks.
Well, it would be nice to know more details about how they plan on, you know, what are they thinking so far as the food and, you know.
That's kind of beyond the scope of what we're being asked for. If we're just saying you need to utilize Brimstone Grill, that's between Brimstone Grill and the high school. It's gonna really depend on how many people register for the Comet Golf tournament to determine what the cost will be to the town, what the donation would be. And it's gonna depend on what kind of sponsors and gifts and items that they get that they're gonna raffle or donate to it, to kind of go for the proceeds of the draws and things that they may have. And so I really don't know if I can answer that accurately. Even if we do have a bit more time, we can find out what the cost would be to the town on a perfect scenario if it was completely booked. But I think the question to council, and the other thing I'll say is I don't think you need to worry about being consistent. This isn't a, the RCMP isn't necessarily the local RCP detachment, it's an outside entity, right? And so I don't think it needs to be if we do this for one, we do it for all. I think you can totally be left up to your discretion to determine what and if and how. I will say though that this is a little bit of a distinction versus utilizing the school, or the school's utilizing the pool and those kinds of natures. That's a curriculum. This is athletics, which is outside of the curriculum. And so and I'm not saying that to dissuade you, but there is a slight difference in the support that we are giving to what this ask is.
I see that, but I think there's some gold in here too, because I think I don't know who Brett would bring to golf at Raymond, but I bet you they could expose our golf course to a new group of people.
Yeah, 100%.
Which could be beneficial in the long run.
And going back, Mayor, we could wait another 2 weeks to get more information, which I thought we were going to kind of have some information today. But I told Brett, they just want to get planning and get going. Another 2 weeks, that puts them off a little more time for their sponsorship, their information they're going to gather on their side, and then getting advertising going too.
Well, we have to make a motion on it next week, so maybe Curtis could have more info for next week for us.
It's worth looking at.
Okay, Curtis?
Yep.
Okay, 3.6, this is not one I like to see. People that we've tried to be good to that are not being good back. So this is blocked from the public, isn't it?
Yes,
Okay, good. I don't want them to see the names. So when did this happen? Like, was it 4 years ago and you've been trying to collect for 4 years on the first one?
some of them have different dates. One's from 2019, one's from 2018, and one's from 2016. We don't rent the facilities to these individuals until these balances are paid going forward. But some of them were in those situations. Others were different nuanced challenges with each of them. But it's just clogging up space on our books that really we don't have any means or way to collect. We'll just prevent them from utilizing the facilities in the future.
So let me ask you a question. Is the first one a men's hockey tournament?
Yes.
Yes.
And that one wasn't, yeah, that bothers me there. Because they're making money, they're taking in the fees to play in the tournament.
Correct.
Counselor Computers?
Yeah, Mayor, I'm 100% with you there. When I read that one and I realized what it was, it really burned me because a lot of us have been a part of groups, whether it's Stampede or basketball tournaments or football things, where you charge an admission in order to pay for the facilities you rent or book. And to do what they did, that burns me. And I was hoping there'd be a way that you could apply that back to taxes or something, a way to get that money back. If we can't, then I wholeheartedly agree that they're not able to use facilities until those fees are paid.
Yeah, the Municipal Government Act is very prescriptive as to what we can and cannot add to the tax roll, and this is not one of those things.
But not even those people, it's the whole idea. I mean, if it's the men's hockey, they could have another person come to try to do it. So it's not even that person, it's that the men's hockey is not paying their fees. It's not just that one person that's responsible, is what I'm saying.
Correct.
It's the whole men's hockey. So if they want to have another tournament, they gotta pay this up first before they can have a tournament. Whether they charge a little extra fee, so they pay for that ice and this last ice. But there should be some accountability on whatever fees they did charge.
I agree.
The only thing is, I agree with you, except for it's tough because if they do have another men's tournament, it's a totally different group of people that might do it.
Yeah, but we already got burned once, we can't get burned
Yeah,
twice.
again. That's the bad thing.
But if they
The
pay
name
for it
on
upfront
there,
though,
It's
right?
representing a committee or a group of people who probably thought that was taken care of.
I'm sure they thought it was taken care of.
And so my question would be, where did that money go? Into other hockey things, or like, is it just sitting in their bank account and I don't understand.
Well, yeah, this has nothing to do with minor hockey or anything like that, so.
Yeah, I know.
I know
Yeah.
none went to local minor hockey or anything.
Yeah.
I know how much you paid the refs, it wasn't very much.
You did it for free, you know.
It was close.
That's too bad because there are people, who expected all these expenses of the tournament or whatever it was to be paid. And it wasn't.
So I played in men's hockey leagues or tournaments before, and we paid the money, and I didn't have any concern about where the money went. I thought it paid for my fees.
Yeah, you just pay your fee.
I'd
for
be
the tournament.
sad. I'd be sad to find out that someone didn't pay it.
Yeah, because it affects
So,
you. You
for
won't be able to do that again,
For sure.
unless it's paid up front next time.
So are you suggesting that there won't be ever a men's hockey tournament ever again until this fee's paid?
It's probably the same people. Isn't it?
No.
So there'd be different people
Be
that'll
totally
come,
different people, yeah.
and he won't be one of the ones on the
Nope.
ice.
So that's what I mean, you can't just do a blanket saying no men's hockey tournament until this is paid, because they have nothing to do with each other. Or they
That's
might not have anything to do with each other.
Kind of outside the question for tonight, should this be written off? Maybe it should. I mean, look how open it is.
Well, this person came back to talk to us about the Stampede grounds too. We talked to them about having remember they're gonna have a mud bog?
Yep.
Chuck, whatever it was called.
And we do have at least one name associated with this.
You know,
I
okay,
think,
let me shed a little bit of light on this, now that I look at the date and stuff. This might be the one that he tried to organize and then the tournament didn't happen.
Oh, Okay,
So there wasn't a tournament. And so he got billed for the ice because he had booked the ice
oh,
and then probably forgot to cancel the ice or whatever.
well, that's a different story,
Yeah,
okay.
because if I remember right, 2 years ago, when he was trying to put this together, it never happened. It was either 2 years ago or 3 years ago where the tournament didn't happen. And this might be it.
Well, that would be good to know.
Do you know that, Curtis, that this was,
I do not know any of the specifics around the booking. It's just our financial services department had these 3 outstanding invoices that have been on the books for quite some time, and they asked council to consider writing them off because we weren't being able to collect on them. However, that's up to your discretion.
so let's go to the third one then. Is it, this person just rented the ice on their own and then just didn't pay? Is that how that one went?
To my knowledge, yes. And so they again won't be allowed to rent.
That's
appropriate.
very
I can see
strange.
that.
In the middle one, I'm hungry right now, we should get some goods in kind, you know, we should get something.
I don't understand the middle one either. Councilor Peters?
I'm all for writing these off, just to kind of move on with things. But have these people received a letter? Could we send them letters saying that thou shalt not use ice until these are paid for, but we write them off now and just let them know they're not welcome to use facilities, that they're covered?
We've sent repeated invoices to them, but we can send a letter with kind of an ultimatum.
So what was their answers back? Just nothing?
Nothing.
There's no sense carrying something that's 5 years old on the books any longer, so. Or 2
I
years
have
ago.
a question. Like, these 2 of these are ice rentals, it says, right, you know, we understand that. But are they, these individuals say they can't rent the ice until this is cleared up, but are we gonna allow them to rent other town facilities before this is cleared up? Like, if they wanna rent the swimming pool, are we gonna allow that?
But this name that we've got associated with, is that for a group of people too? Or was it, I don't know, don't know, there's a lot of questions.
There's a lot of questions.
And the one in the middle, that one's, what's that one about? It's not about ice?
No? I don't think.
Full special events package? What's this
When
about?
is that about?
Again, unfortunately, I don't have that information, so I'll have to
Well,
try.
it would be a little bit nice to know some of the details before we decide it, because I'm quite curious.
I'm baffled. Like,
Me
why
too.
They haven't paid their bills.
Because, yeah, these are good people who do good things in the community,
Yeah.
so like, I don't know what to think,
I'm in favor of writing them off though because of their
I am
dates
too.
and because of the repeated efforts to collect and nothing's happened. And there's no recourse for us.
Well, we can't vote on it this week anyways, can we?
Yeah.
So I guess we'll,
Guess you
I
can
mean, it would
try.
be nice if we could get a little bit more information, but maybe that's impossible.
I guess you could send Abe or Officer Bond or someone one last time for next Tuesday. Not Abe, I'm just joking, Abe.
Well, I'm just curious to know
Yeah, me too.
what it's about. Anyways. But yeah, we gotta do something.
We haven't seen a lot of this in the last
No.
3.5 years, I'm happy to say.
It's true.
It's nice to have the recourse of putting things on the tax roll, but in these cases, we haven't got that. So these are completely outside of our ability to include on taxes, even business?
Correct.
Okay.
Okay. I know it's one more thing to add on your to-do list, but maybe reach out to her one more time on next Tuesday. Or do you think that's asking too much out of Curtis? When was the last time
I
you
think you
did
just
talk
make
to
the
him?
decision, and just write them off.
When did you last talk to him? Curtis?
I think he's talking and we can't, he's on
He's
mute.
on mute?
Sorry about that. I've never spoken with them. Financial Services handles these kind of questions and accounts, and they've gone through their processes, and this is kind of that next step. So
If I had to hazard a guess, I would say January 11th. That's the date of the statement.
Last time it was said.
Yeah.
Okay,
My instinct says if there's been no progress in all this time, one more contact, one more letter is not gonna make any difference.
It'll be just as successful on it.
but we've never heard about it till now, that's what.
It's kind of unusual.
Is it legal for a town to use a collection agency? A municipality?
yep, it is. There's fees associated with that, so.
Yeah.
But yes, you can. We've never done it historically, but that doesn't preclude us from doing it going forward. We, as you mentioned, Council From, this isn't a regular occurrence, thankfully, so.
Well, I don't know what to say.
Me neither. Well, like, we can't,
I guess you'll have to bring it-
decision until next week anyways.
It's
Yeah,
a
you have to
hassle
bring
for
it
us to
back
carry
next week, I
forward
guess we can
year
just,
after year.
we'll discuss it a little bit more or think about it and then someone can make the motion next week. Okay? 3.7. Proposed budget, spending plan. Go ahead, Curtis.
Abe, if you want to just refresh, it's not a big deal, but I had an extra 2021 in there. I got 3 versions here based on our conversation last week and some just things that we had missed previously. So version A, 2A that we have the first attachment, that is pretty close to what we had outlined last week. That is exactly where we ended up at the end of last week. The revenues that are associated are down at the bottom. The color coding kind of lets you know where the money's coming from. The ones that are bold are the ones that we are committed to, and the ones that are just in regular font are the ones that can be adjusted. And so with the adjustments you've done in the column beside 21 underneath where it says deferred, those 2, 4, 6, 7 projects were pushed over into 2020 or out of 2021. And if the federal government provides additional funding at some point as part of their stimulus measures, if they're still printing money, we'll see if there's opportunities to accelerate some of those in the future. However, if you'll scroll out of here, Abe, and go into the next attachment, version 2B, I was going through a couple of other projects, and I apologize for not having this included previously, but we have approved a number of local improvements for raw water extensions, and we do have to finance those up front. And so if we are to do that, we are going to have to defer that wastewater water maintenance kind of project. That was our operational services director requested. He had asked for $100,000 for each water and sewer, and we combined them down into one to try and meet our budget. However, there was the comment made as well that they wanted to try and reserve some of that potential utility reserve for the sewer lagoon expansion project. This version here does not have that accomplished. It's using all 300,000, but it is allowing us to do the pay for the local improvements of the raw water expansion up front. And then if you go into the next one there, Abe, version 2C. This is the exact same there, but instead we've kind of reduced it so there would be $75,000 of the utility reserve for 2021 that would be remaining in reserves that could go towards that project. And we just had to adjust the numbers accordingly to kind of make that work. Wayfinding was reduced by an extra $23,000, and another project was reduced as well. So this isn't something you have to decide immediately, but we are getting closer where we are going to want to approve this come beginning of April. And so just some general discussion, if you're comfortable with this, how set are you on wanting to have any of that utility reserve money remain? Or are we wanting to spend it all in 2020 to try and 2021 to try and accomplish some of these projects? Or if you're wanting to maintain that deferral.
So, as I was going through this, I could see what you were trying to do. I think it's wise that we have this utility reserves, eh?
Me too. I didn't see it all spent in 1 year.
Yeah, well, I'm glad we have it. Something that Curtis brought up 3 years ago that we started doing, and it's been a
Smart move.
very smart move, very wise move.
Yeah, I agree, I don't want to spend all 1 year,
No, not all of it, but I think some of it.
but some of it, yes.
That's my thoughts.
Mayor,
Councilor Peters?
for Curtis, the 2C, that's the one that leaves how much in reserve for us?
So this will leave $75,000 from our 2021 reserves in the reserve, and then we would have $375,000 going into 2022, which would either be utilized for the sewage lagoon expansion. As we get going into that project, we'll be able to kind of get a better idea of what we need. The more we have in reserves that we can use for the project, the less we have to take out a debenture, which means we'll be able to pay it off sooner. So there is benefit to reserving as much as we can. The one caveat we could do with this one here, 2C, version 2C, is that if we do decide to, this is C, I didn't update it in the ledger at the top, I apologize. This version here where it says 225,000 from reserves, we could drop that down to 200 and then almost roll the dice, because I do believe that some of the families that are, or some of the property owners, sorry, that are going to be taking on the raw water will pay for that up front. And therefore, if we can get 25,000 or 1/5 of that amount paid or close, we'd be able to manage it within our cash flow for the project. And then we would have a full $100,000 that could be carried over into 2022.
I prefer that myself.
I do too.
That
Yes,
sounds
that's right.
good.
Stuart, what about you? You okay?
Yeah, I'm nodding along, that sounds good.
Okay.
Okay, so if there's no other concerns, we'll kind of leave this as is without adding any more additions or changes to it, other than what you've just talked about, reducing the reserves to 200,000 utilized in 2021 and adjusting accordingly, and having $100,000 be carried into 2022. We'll have that 5-year capital spending plan available. Our goal is to have the first reading of our tax rate bylaw either at next week's council meeting or potentially first council meeting in April, with an approval either that day or 2 weeks later on that second council meeting in April. So that's kind of our plan, and whenever we are ready to make those, we'll pass this capital spending plan at that time. And just one other point of information for you, we just went ahead and purchased those AEDs that we had kind of been talking about that never seemed to have been able to be funded, just because we felt it was imperative. So we did go ahead and purchase 5 of them, just and we'll incorporate that into a line item somewhere. But we felt it was important to have those facilities this year.
Defibrillators, they purchased 5 of them.
Oh, the defibrillator.
Oh.
Yes, the defibrillator, sorry.
Okay. Okay. Everybody okay with this then?
I hope we never use them.
Yeah,
It's good to have them.
good to have them all.
Okay. Any other comments on this 3.7? We'll move on to 3.8. Go ahead, Joe.
Okay, and with the beautification committee, they are wanting to do another focused cleanup for the community. They did notice, however, that the 4th Monday cleanup for May is actually Victoria Day weekend. So they wanted to postpone it till the 31st so that they could have a focused town cleanup on the Saturday, which is the 29th. And, just, they're still in the planning stages where they're thinking they could get some youth volunteers to help some seniors or, other people that might need help getting junk out to the curb for the cleanup. And then, last time they did the, they had the town waive the fee. I don't know if you guys I'm in approval of that, just because if you can get people to get rid of junk, that's really good, and the town is going around to pick up stuff anyways, so. But I think only a couple people used it last time anyways. But it just gives everybody a focus time where they can clean up the junk out of their yards.
So you're talking, there's 5 Mondays, so you're talking the 31st instead of the 24th.
The 31st, yeah, because the 4th, Monday, it's on the website, but it's actually Victoria Day. So I don't think they're gonna be picking up any
The holiday.
stuff, it's gonna be a holiday, so they just made a mistake on the website, so. They're wanting it to be the 31st so that they can start, maybe recruiting some helpers or, kind of do what they did last time, which was kind of fun.
Councilor Harker, are you wanting this done in March?
No, May.
No, it's the last weekend in May, that's the last cleanup.
The 31st is a Monday
The
in May.
31st is a Monday. The week it's supposed to be is Victoria Day, Curtis, I don't know if you noticed that on the calendar.
Okay.
So, they just wanted me to bring it to you so that you could, if you approved that, they could go ahead.
I think that's a great idea.
Necessary, because their own bylaw, stuff won't be picked up on the holiday anyway, it'll be
Yeah.
next business day.
So, and they have a pretty active group that's willing to start, soliciting maybe some youth groups or whatever. And see if there are some people who maybe need some help, Not everybody has some big, strong grandkids to help,
Yeah.
so.
So I'm not sure you heard Councillor Fromm's comment. He said it is a holiday, long weekend, that 24th, so it should be moved to the 31st anyway.
Yeah, regardless whether we do the waiving the fee or whatever, it
And have
does need to be
beautification.
moved.
Have the beautification start working
Yeah.
on this date, for sure. Okay, I think we can move that on next council meeting.
Okay, great.
Everybody okay with that?
Mhm.
Okay, good.
But that day should be waived on the website, Abe,
We'll fix
or
that.
fixed on the website,
Yeah,
just so
thank
people know.
Okay, that's all of what's on the agenda, so we can move into going to close. I need a motion to go into close. Councillor Fromm, all in favor? Okay, we're need. We are adjourned, thank you. Somebody in here will do that.
Thank you.
That's so silly.